Welcome to PseudoPod, the weekly horror podcast, which I'll be saying again in a few seconds. This is a horror show. Adult and disturbing content is present throughout. Buckle up.
PseudoPod, episode 915, for April 12th, 2024. Heavy Rain, by T.J. Price. Narrated by Scott Campbell. Hosted by Kat Day. Audio by Chelsea Davis. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing okay. I'm Kat, assistant editor at PseudoPod, your host for this week, and I'm excited to tell you that for this week we have Heavy Rain by T.J. Price. This story originally appeared in the 2023 anthology Howls from the Wreckage. T.J. Price's corporeal being is currently located in Raleigh, NC, with his handsome partner of many years. But his ghosts live in northeastern Connecticut, southern Maine, and North Brooklyn. He is the author of a novelette, The Disappearance of Tom Nero, and also has work in Nightmare Magazine, Pigeonholes, the No Sleep podcast, as well as various anthologies. He can be invoked at either tjpricewrites.com or via the Bluebird at Eerie Yaw. Failing that, one can make a circle of chalk on the floor, stand in the centre, and burn a photograph of a loved one until all that remains is ashes. And then listen for a murmuring from within the walls. Leave your message after the sound of the scrap. Your narrator this week is Scott Campbell. Scott searches for challenges that will increase his skills for the battles to come. The slush pile underneath PseudoPod Towers is a worthy opponent. Scott is an assistant editor at PseudoPod, and he lives in Florida with absolutely no pets. He writes, directs and performs for the queer, in every sense of the word, cabaret, the Mickey Mouse Club. And he also writes far too infrequently at the official online home of the Sleep Deprivation Institute and pop culture website needcoffee.com. Before we go any further, content warning. This story discusses suicide right from the beginning. If that's hard for you, please skip this one. We understand, and we'll be back next week. And now, we have a story for you, and we promise you, it's true.
Heavy Rain by T.J. Price. Narrated by Scott Campbell. I'm standing in the doorway where you last stood before you got up on a chair, slipped the belt around your throat like a necktie, and kicked the chair out from under you. I imagine for the 100th time how you expired, gasping like a fish in the air, shitting yourself, pissing yourself, twisting like a wind chime in a gale. 2 months have passed, and I still cannot entirely scrub the stains from the floor. Our life was golden. Well, maybe a little tarnished on the edges. We still clasped one another in the evening hours. We still smiled when we talked, held our sides when we laughed, and we shared our inside jokes. But you didn't like to have sex, and I did. I found other men. You didn't like to do much with your body. You started moving away from me whenever I touched you, like I repulsed you, or maybe you knew what I was doing. So you hit fast forward on your life. You wanted to see the credits roll. You wanted the fade to black, the stippling darkness, the sudden blast of white on the projector screen as the movie ended. You hated yourself more than I could love you. Since you took my heart and then fled to a place where I could never get it back, I took the pruning shears from the shed of our apartment building's little backyard, and I snipped off your left index finger. Everyone thought it was something you did before you killed yourself, something bizarre, a kind of inexplicable symbol. Where did it go, they all asked. The men in uniform scoured the garbage, the apartment. They asked me when they thought they could slip into conversation between the "I'm sorry" and the "for your loss." I told them that's how I found you, minus one finger. When they found the pruning shears in the shed, still stained ruddy with your blood, they assumed you did it to yourself. "What pain he must have been in," your best friend from work whispered to me at the funeral. It was meant to be some kind of sympathy, but it came off like a headline ripped from the tabloids. Other than work, you preferred to keep to yourself. You liked a small crew. The smallest was you and me and the dog. Even the dog's gone now. Couldn't stand to look at her anymore. A nice family took her in. She's romping on a farm somewhere, I'm sure. I read how to preserve your finger online. It's in a mason jar, screwed tightly shut, full of what the internet calls strong water, which is water with a lot of grain alcohol in it. The finger does not float. It leans against the side of the glass, pointing towards heaven. It is crooked slightly, too, as if it's saying, "Come hither." I keep your finger next to our bed, on your nightstand, so I can see it any time I want. When I can't sleep, I focus on the whirs of your fingerprint, the flicking keratin of your nail. You never had much in the way of nails, being better at chewer. But after death, the nail has grown. I looked it up, though. The nail isn't growing, it's that the skin is shrinking back from the nail bed. It just looks like it's growing. And I can't stop sighing or crying. I keep typing up text to Chelsea, my friend, even when she's at work, and then deleting the text before I send it. They are invariably a combination of, "Help me," or "Today is a bad day," or "I can't stop crying," or "I saw your ghost today." The last one was a lie. I've never seen your ghost, but I've tried to convince myself that I have. When the rain starts, I'm thinking about how the weather's been so strange lately. Thunderstorms big enough that the knickknacks on the shelves jostle one another in fear. The temperature is chilly in the morning, but brutally humid by midday. The world can't take any more moisture. It is an overfilled sponge leaking out around the edges. To make things worse, last night the air conditioning gave a big rattle-trap sigh and quit on me. I threw open all the windows to their fullest, gaping out on the world like young struck mouths. The heat of the day had stealthily crept in, its cloying humidity as predatory as kudzu vines. When an errant breeze kicks up, I stop and close my eyes for a moment, relishing the ephemeral coolness as long as I can. Splat! I open my eyes. Something has hit the floor and rolled under the cabinets in the kitchen and left a translucent, jellied stain along with a bright red smear. The most logical solution is the obvious one. I stick my head out of the window, casting about this way and that, trying to find the culprit. Someone's playing jokes. Toss something in through the window, as odd of an angle as it is. It's either that or something has fallen from the sky. I tilted my head back inside and hunt for the invader, getting down on my hands and knees and following the red smear it left behind. I press my face on the cool linoleum to see what it is. To this day, I still wonder which of us saw each other first. The intruding object looks like a peeled, squashed grape, with a milky film like a mold saddling the middle of it. It's peculiarly white from what I can see. I pull back from the dark recess, my bile rising before I look again to confirm what I have seen. It's an eyeball. I almost expect it to blink as if it is as stupefied to see me as I am to see it. Outside, a low grumble of thunder, like a sentinel guard dog issuing a warning, and the sound of wet descending from the clouds. I reach under the cabinet and drew the eyeball out. It's slimy against my fingers, trailing a bit of its ocular nerve like a little braided tail. The iris, though cloudy, is strikingly familiar. In fact, you had eyes that were just this color. Deep blue, but green too, like the ocean before a thunderstorm. A car alarm goes off somewhere nearby, wailing like a disturbed infant, piercing and shrill. Someone screams, and for a moment the two sounds intertwine into a ghastly weave before the screaming stops, as abruptly as someone pulling the plug on a sound effects tape. I set the eyeball down on the counter and turn to look outside again, concerned. The rain continues. It thuds against the roof, and I think, hail? Then the noise shifts, unutterably. It sounds like when you used to pound the steaks with your fist to tenderize them. Wham! 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 Something flashes by the window, something bulky and large, like a wrapped package from the butcher's. I think, who is throwing meat off the roof? It's big enough to be a leg of lamb or an unbroken set of ribs. A moment passes. Another object whizzes by outside. I hesitantly creep towards the window. There, catched in the railing of the fire escape and dangling like a bizarre ornament, is a severed leg. It's cut off cruelly somewhere above the knee, with a great chunk of thigh still attached, and judging by the amount of hair off the calf and shin, it's a man's leg. The skin has a ruddy glow to it, as if recently amputated. As I stare at it, completely mesmerized by the sight, I notice another strangeness. The street below is littered with body parts, as though God has grown angry with his dolls and dismembered them all over the neighborhood. There are arms up to the shoulder, hands splayed out like fallen leaves, a foot here, or torso there. Scattered around are clumps of nameless flesh and gristle, strips of muscle and fascia, gleaming like wet seashells in the dim afternoon. I do what anybody would do. I do what you would do. I twist around and look up. The clouds are gray and black like ink droplets in curdled milk. The wind is ghastly and hot like the humid breath of an abattoir. I recoil in disgust, back inside the apartment, and not a moment too soon. The insistent, arrhythmic pounding on the roof becomes louder, even thunderous, and for a moment I mistake it for applause. But it is not applause. It is the sound of things collapsing, the sound of ruin. I wonder where you are before I remember you're dead. And then the deluge begins. It lasts for approximately 10 minutes before the body parts stop raining from the sky, but it takes much, much longer than that to get over the shock of what happened. When the kitchen window shatters from a dismembered arm, fingers grasping at me as if it was alive, I admit it, I turn and flee out into the hallway, down the 2 flights of stairs to the front lobby, to look out at the world through the small window in the door. I watch as someone running is struck down by a chunk of tissue that seems half-formed, glistening in the light. They are knocked to the side, their heads splitting against the corner of a building in a red splatter. Cars careen to the sides of the road, barking up stoops and crashing into the front of the buildings opposite. Alarms wail, barely audible over the sound of the fleshy rain. Thud, thud, thwack. Glass shatters, horns blare. As the alien downpour finally ceases, I cautiously open the front door. A severed hand falls from the awning and splats into the concrete right in front of me. I notice that one of its fingernails is oozing blood into the crescent of its cuticle as if recently chewed. Everywhere there is ruin and wreckage, blood-stained people lifting themselves up from prone positions on the sidewalks, wrestling with limbs and other fleshy encumbrances. Some come out of recessed entrances, fearful eyes trained on the gloomy sky above. The power lines sag from their poles, fizzing and sparking, some of the wires bent down to the street, and everywhere there is a dense stillness, a shared quiet that reverberates from panicked eye to panicked eye. No one is quite sure what to do, who to call. I think about checking my phone, but when I reach into the pocket, I realize I left it upstairs. From the distance, a siren, getting closer, I tense up, unexpectedly reminded of the night I found you hanging in our doorway. After I took the shears to your hand. It was only fair. But then I called the police, and I remember hearing the same lonely siren uncurling from the seethe and buzz of the city, homing in on me and I suppose you, as your lumpen body swayed from side to side. Someone is crying. Someone else is screaming. It could have been me. Feels like a bomb has gone off, or some hideous artifact of war has landed in the middle of the street with all the assorted, blood-spattered bits of bodies lying about. Manna from heaven for cannibals, I think to myself. Where did this rain of flesh come from? Surely not heaven, surely not the clouds. Even now they are shifting, disassembling, letting the fury of the summer sun beat down on the scene below. The storm, such as it is, did nothing to dispel the sticky humidity. The scent of iron weighs down the air. On the wrought iron fence, a foot is pierced through the middle like stigmata. A woman is crouched over someone else just down the sidewalk. The would-be rescuer is open-mouthed, staring at me, shouting something in Spanish. In one hand, she holds a detached arm at the elbow, waving its hand at me as if trying to get my attention. Fingers at the end of the arm wiggle, all except for one. The arm is missing a finger. An index finger. I go to the woman, walking towards her in a daze. She is yelling at me, gesturing to the crumpled, unmoving figure on the asphalt even as she is getting up, hurrying down the street away from us, leaving the severed arm behind. I think about yelling after her, but I swallow it instead. What good can I do for this poor sap struck down by a flailing arm from the sky? I kneel down anyway, to touch their pulse. I stand up. This person isn't breathing, and dark blood flows from a dent in the side of their skull. This person isn't alive. I stare at the arm. Its presence is disquieting enough, but for it to seem somehow familiar as well. Vertigo shifts my world from one side to the other as I pick up the arm gingerly by its elbow. It's heavier than I thought it would be. The sirens are multiplying, as if a swarm is about to descend all at once. I back away from the corpse and feel something squish unpleasantly beneath the sole of my sneaker. I lift my foot to see jellied strings connecting it to the sidewalk. Another eyeball. Swift remorse jolts through me, immediately followed by revulsion, as though I'd stepped on a cat's tail. I run back to the apartment building and slam the door behind me. My heart is thudding. I'm covered in a sheen of sweat. I'm still holding the severed arm. Your arm. Standing there in the stuffy dimness, I can barely breathe. I shift the arm around me, grappling with it like an unwieldy rifle. I press its still warm palm to my own. I interlace what fingers it has left with mine until we are holding hands, you and I. It feels almost holy in the sweaty cloister of an apartment foyer, leaning against the wall. The stump, right where its index finger should have been, right where the shears lopped it off, twitches, and I scream, hurling the arm away from me. It lands on the carpet with an awkward thud. For long moments I watch it, daring it to move, to come to life and start crawling towards me, dragging itself on the floor by its bloody fingertips. It does no such thing. It doesn't move at all. In fact, it looks lonely. Your finger is crooked even further now, I swear it. Perhaps it's the slow degradation of the flesh in the strong water. The muscle inside your finger is contracting slowly or something. I'm sure there's some kind of explanation for it, but I can't come up with one. It's been approximately 30 minutes since the police have arrived on the scene, and no one knows what to do with all the fallen flesh. With all the carnage that's been wrought, the whole neighborhood's been cordoned off. No one knows what happened. Reports are trickling in on my phone. They're analyzing the flight paths of airplanes that might have traveled overhead, that might have loosed some cargo or something. They're looking for anomalous weather conditions that might have disturbed a cemetery somewhere and brought the limbs to fall upon us like some kind of biblical plague. Night's about to fall, and I have no power in the apartment. No lights. The entire neighborhood is without power. There's a stuffed quiet as if someone has taxidermied the whole block. No one knows which department is in charge of what. I've seen trucks roll down through marked Department of Sanitation, and I've seen men in hazmat suits, and the police have been going door to door. They even rang my doorbell. I didn't answer, and I wasn't home. In the dark, I sit here fingering your suicide note, the one that's creased and folded around the edges, from where I keep it in my wallet. The one that's stained with my tears, the one that begins, "Dear Noah, I'm sorry." I'm so angry that I crumple the note up in my fist and smooth it out again, like I have 100 times before, and try to read it further, even when I know it now by heart. I hope you understand someday. This is the only way I know how to escape. I long to be free of my body, but I will miss yours. Love always, Adam. Lightning sighs voicelessly across the sky. I strip out my t-shirt, which is stained with your blood, and lunge at the jar in which your finger is kept. The water sloshes uneasily as I grip the top and unscrew. It takes some doing. I screwed it tightly 2 months prior, but it finally pops free. There's a sharp, acrid odor that rises out, and your finger's there too, pointing at me, as if it knows what I'm going to do. Hours pass, and they still haven't cleared up the street. Men in uniforms and hard hats stand outside, bickering with one another. One man points to another man, who points at another man. Most of them stand around smoking cigarettes, gawking at the ruin. Body parts still festoon the scene. Some of them, incongruously positioned on trees, are hanging from fire escapes. An arm is still laying discarded on the sidewalk, and it's this that I crouch by as I fervently unveil my secret. I've wrapped it in paper towels, patted it dry of the strong water. It gets such a strange, gummy texture to it, and it's so cold when I pull it out of the little shroud. When I place it on the stump of the arm's missing finger, I feel a jolt, a spark. When I blink, there's your arm, made whole again up to the shoulder. At once, I understand everything. I turn my eyes up to the sky in a sort of supplication. I wonder, will there be more of you, like this? Can I find all your desperate parts? Can I somehow undo what you've done, through puzzling you back together? There, an ear nestled in the leaves of the neighbor's holly bush. There, a finger, so many superfluous parts. Are they all you? I only need 9 more fingers to make 10. 10 toes, 2 feet, 2 hands. Teeth, so many teeth, littered around like tiny pebbles. I count them all out as I collect them from the ground, from a neighbor's bird bath, where they lay like innocents in the shallow puddle. I go about gathering you up piece by piece. On the second trip back to the apartment, I bring a backpack. Your backpack, the same one you wore when we climbed the mountains together. I put my hood up and wear sunglasses, though the sun's long since set. Sky is a haze of purplish blue, smeary with the aurora of streetlights. I do not stop when questioned. I run, stooping only to gather a gobbet of muscle that I need to reconstruct your cheek. It's like sculpture I discover. Each piece fuses marvelously back into place. The power still hasn't come back on. I work feverishly in the dark, while the hot, stinking wind blows in through the shattered windows. I am possessed of the wildest, strangest hope. Finally, I have all of you. Your entire corpus laid out on the floor in front of me, right down to the ligature scars on your neck where the belt snapped your spine. You are complete, but without breath, without life. I prise open one of your eyelids with my index finger and thumb, and I breathe your name into the air. Lightning answers, illuminating the room in stark white for a half second, and I swear I see your pupil dilate between the thin white clouds of death departing. I swear I see your lips tremble, start to move, start to say my name. No. Your voice is a harsh whisper, scratching against your throat. Your face starts to contort, your mouth opening in a wide howl, and I clap my hand over it to muffle your scream. It's all right, I assure you. You're home now, and I will never let you go again!
Well done. You've survived another story. What did you think of Heavy Rain by TJ Price? If you're a Patreon subscriber, we encourage you to pop over to our Discord channel and tell us. Grief is a strange shapeshifter of a thing. As you grow older, you think you understand it, and that you know how it will hit you. But first you'll go through A, then B, then C. And then you lose someone else because, tragically, the longer you live, the more that happens. And you find it's completely different. You're angry in a way you never were before. The pain burns in a way it never did before. The scars ache in a way they never have before. And you are changed. And no matter how much you wish for it, you cannot go back. You can't erase it, and you can't make it stop. TJ Price captures that here. It's never spoken explicitly, but it's clear to me that our main character blames himself for his partner's death. He's telling this story, and he is not the hero, not even a little. And to me, that speaks many, many volumes in just 3,500 words. Noah is angry, and he is full of shame. These lines: "Since you took my heart and then fled to a place where I could never get it back, I took the pruning shears from the shed in our apartment building's little backyard, and I snipped off your left index finger." Yes, he's angry with himself, angry with Adam, angry with the world. He can't scrub the stains from the floor, and he can't make the scars disappear. To quote from a book which undoubtedly inspired some of the ideas in this story, nothing is so painful to the human mind as a great and sudden change. The last time I hosted, I said that the trouble with revenge was that we spend a great deal of time thinking about the moment of revenge, which is short, and not about what comes after, which is long. And since I wrote and recorded those words, I've continued to think about them. It's not just revenge, is it? It's a very human thing to fix on a single point in the future. We'll go on that date, we'll sit this exam, we'll move house, we'll get married, we'll live happily ever after. We plan for the event, which is short, and we don't think enough about what comes afterwards, which is long. I feel that for Noah here. He wants Adam back. He wants him back so badly. It all but consumes him. In real life, of course, we keep letters and pictures and gifts, and here, because this is horror, Noah keeps a finger. But it's all the same. Pieces that we just can't let go of. And here, when the heavy rain comes, Noah forces Adam back together. He doesn't think about what Adam wants or wanted. He doesn't think about what will come after. He is fixated on the act of creation. There is no after. Adam is home, and Noah will never let him go again. There is no after. No happily ever after. Brilliant, brutal, heart-shredding writing from TJ Price. Before I get on with the usual end bits, in the real world, there are always choices, always. If any of the issues here affect you, please seek support. In the UK, you can contact the Samaritans on 116 123 or by email, or even by written letter if that might help. In America, you can call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline on 988. And other countries have similar services. We'll put some links in the show notes. And now to the subject of subscribing and support. PseudoPod is funded by you, our listeners, and we're now formally a non-profit. One-time donations are gratefully received and much appreciated, but what really makes a difference is subscribing. A $5 monthly donation on Patreon will go further than you would believe. Subscribers give us way more than just money. They give us stability, reliability, and dependability. Monthly donations give PseudoPod a well-maintained tower from which to operate. And trust us, you don't want breaches in our walls. If you can, please go to pseudopod.org and sign up by clicking on Feed the Pod. If you have any questions about how to support EA and ways to give, please reach out to us at donations@escapeartist.net. And if you can't afford to support us financially, and we understand, then please consider leaving reviews of our episodes, or generally talking about them on whichever form of social media seems the least awful this week. And by the way, we now have a Blue Sky account. Find us at pseudopod.org. If you like merch, Escape Artists also has a Void merch store, with a huge range of fabulous hoodies, t-shirts and other goodies. The link is in various places, including our pinned tweet, for as long as Twitter fails to collapse into the screaming void. Check it out. PseudoPod is part of the Escape Artists Foundation, a 501c3 non-profit, and this episode is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Download and listen to the episode on any device you like, but don't change it or sell it. Theme music is by permission of Anders Wagner. Next week, we have Flash on the Borderlands number 70, Through a Glass Darkly, with stories by Sam Lessick, Marjorie Bowen, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and Kat Day, whoever that is. Anyway, finally, PseudoPod and Mary Shelley know. Life, although it may only be an accumulation of anguish, is dear to me, and I will defend it. See you soon, folks. Take care. Stay safe.
An arm appeared from nowhere on the shape, seemingly projected like the pseudopod of a protozoan.
It's a pseudopod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.